A few years ago now, I made 2 of my most popular videos on the channel, which basically act as recaps for what events stuck. The lives where Subaru Natsuki succeeded, and what events will be forever forgotten by our array of supporting cast members destined to live in a world without everyone's favorite and hated previously shut-in NEET. Basically viewing the story through everyone else besides Subaru looking in. And usually what that appears as is either a valiant knight with godlike omniscience, incredible luck, and some seriously impressive leadership skills, or a supremely pathetic and downright disgusting human being. Basically, a guy with some seriously scarily intense mood swings. That or a personality disorder or something. And you know what? With ReZero's 3rd season right around the corner, I'm remastering them both and slapping them into this one video right here. By the way, for the name pronunciations, I'll be using the dub names for this video. Anything that they say in the dub, I'll be saying as well. If you don't like that, hate the dub, not me. So, without further ado, let the ReZero remaster begin! I suppose. Motherfuckers thought I forgot. After his convenience store run went awry, Subaru Natsuki spawned into the royal capital of Lagunica with his convenience store goods in hand. I really do wonder what this looked like to nearby passerby, since we see them walking around him as if not even noticing the very oddly dressed and equipped Japanese teen's presence. Perhaps his body was already there? This is where stuff really gets interesting. The next scene is with the Appa merchant, also known as Subaru's first checkpoint in his new video game-esque life. What this means for us is we're free to skip 3 deaths at this point. This vaguely noble-looking 17-year-old weirdly asked the merchant how many times he's seen him, to which Katomon obviously replied only 1, and then the kid confidently declared he's broke beyond compare and dashed away. Only 4 minutes later to return out of breath asking questions about any pickpocketing incidents around here lately, then promising to buy an Appa in the future and running off again. What a fucking weirdo. Then he encountered some crooks who he seemed weirdly familiar with and smartly called the guards for help, which he 1001% received in the form of Reinhardt Van Astrea. While having Reinhardt deal with that, he continued his mad dash loot house bound after denying the, unknown to Subaru of course, godlike Master Swordsman's aid in defeating Elsa out of fear for the knight's safety. Ha. Ha ha. Ha 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 ha. Laughable. That's laughable, Subaru. Finally, in the slums, Felt found him suspiciously rustling through her house. But then, after dropping her name out of nowhere, he attempted to quickly trade as Mitya for a hefty 20+ holy coins. But she was first required to double-check the accuracy of this boy's assessment with Rom. Whoever this Subaru guy is really wanted this deal done and quick, as he may as well have been dragging her at their pace. Though, on the way, after talking about her dream of escaping the slums, he randomly patted her on the head, babbling about the fact that he's gonna make this all somehow work out. Whatever that means. Upon arrival and just before the negotiation for the Mitya was complete, Subaru let it slip that Elsa wouldn't go over 20 coins when she arrived. Which Subaru definitely shouldn't know at this point unless he was working alongside the buyer, so Felt held off on the deal after becoming fairly suspicious of the tracksuit wearing individual. Whatever a tracksuit is. While straight up begging Felt to just do the trade now, would then come Amelia, who immediately began demanding the thief her stolen pendant back, which led Felt to her conclusion of Subaru setting them up, leading to the greater confusion of Amelia, who's never seen this guy in her life. I love this part in particular because it's at this point everyone realized nobody knows what the hell Subaru is even doing here. Well, with one last idea of what he could be. An accomplice to Elsa. Suddenly forcing fear and panic was the woman of the hour, who appeared from the darkness to slice Amelia's bowels. Luckily, Subaru shouted for Puck to shield her, and he did, just in time too. In my initial video, I called this part out that it's weird how 1, Subaru knows about Puck, and that 2, he knows Puck's capabilities, and yet this is never brought up again. Only, this was brought up again, in a fucking chibi short. Why? What? Why? Really weird thing to tuck away in some random comedic spin-off, but the conversation doesn't really go anywhere there anyway. They just call him suspicious and move on, which they're not wrong. If I was Amelia and Puck, I'd be convinced Subaru is a stalker. Like a really hardcore stalker. But anyway, he'd go on to utter, "Do you know how much having your stomach cut open hurts? Because I do." Continuing to heighten how much of a psycho he looks like. Elsa didn't care though. In fact, it took less than no time at all to push the 4 into a corner. So much so that Felt needed to dash away in hopes of finding some help, begging anyone she could find to lend them aid. And she received so much much more than just aid. God misheard the word guard and came down instead. Reinhard van Astrea makes his return, saving this whole day from ending in complete slaughter for the quartet. With one final blow to Elsa, the loot house basically exploded and the day was saved. Though the bowel-hunting Dame did escape. Subaru quickly asked Emilia's name before passing out, to which she hurriedly healed our main character to stabilize him, thankfully saving this loop. Then Reinhard curiously questioned what her relationship to the boy is, but obviously this was her first time seeing him as well, perplexing the knight even further. He'd go on to relay the message told by Subaru to inform Emilia if he saw her beforehand, which basically boiled down to, "Don't worry about the insignia problem, I'll fix things." And after hearing this, Emilia understandably decided to take him back to the Roswell mansion for questioning. Alrighty, before he woke up, Beatrice would finalize the healing of Subaru's wounds, and later, after she went through all the trouble of setting up a never-ending hallway trap, the boy would annoyingly discover the resident Great Spirit with ease. Betty didn't miss a beat though and delivered a painful blow to the human, draining him of all of his mana to confirm he was in fact not an enemy, causing him to pass out once more, where he was brought back to his bed yet again, marking his second checkpoint. 4 deaths later, Subaru uttered, "I'm back here again." This time with Rem and Rom at his bedside, who were understandably quite confused as this was definitely the first time this odd man had ever been here, who I should note was still emanating the Witch of Envy's pungent scent. Following some out-of-place jovial joking with the twins, Subaru suddenly grabbed a hold of both of their hands, resulting in a sigh of relief from Subaru, but leading to a more so creeped-out emotion bubbling in the twins, who were logically assuming he's some sort of pervert. Soon after, Emilia walked in to check on Sue, where he suddenly appeared far happier upon just seeing her face and blurted out, "You were the wonder drug my heart needed." Emilia didn't really understand that though, because I doubt the ReZero world is medically advanced enough to have anything like a wonder drug. You know how in season 2 Garfield has all those one-liners that make zero sense to us at all? I feel like that's exactly what everyone else feels like talking to Subaru, which I have to believe was Nagatsuki's intention, and I absolutely love that. Then, Subaru's request to start work here at the mansion was heeded by Roswell, and his life as a butler began. During his first lunch break, he hung out with Puck and Emilia, the former letting Subaru know all about the basics of the mechanics of magic and the different types. Subaru ended up with the rather rare affinity for shadow magic, and in a no less than terrifying display by Puck, he figured out how to cast Shamak, albeit very roughly at the moment since this was his first time ever using magic. During that evening, Ross and Rom were discussing Subaru. In terms of abilities, he's completely incompetent, but when it counts, he can be excessively quick-witted. It may be necessary to keep an eye on him for the time being. Subaru, even later into the night, out of nowhere asked Beatrice how to counter a shaman's attack, and Beatrice laid out the facts of it being impossible to counter a curse once it's activated and must be detected before it is to nullify it. And the next day, unlike yesterday's far more relaxed and likable attitude, their guest turned butler woke up with a disgustingly unnatural burst of energy. He spent the whole morning running around, doing the most amount of chores he could while trying to please everyone. Obviously though, his rather manic state pleased nobody. Emilia and Puck obviously took notice of Subaru's mental state, commenting on Subaru's insides and outside being completely different. This continued until Subaru's already sinking ship eventually capsized as he puked into a sink. With his physical appearance wearing thin and his mental exhaustion finally reaching its peak, Emilia requested he come to her room. Here, our protagonist assertively received a lap pillow from Emilia, who granted the boy some much-needed respite. The moment he stopped distracting himself from his own mind was the moment he would break down and tearfully weep onto her skin. Even though Emilia didn't know what was happening with Subaru, she consoled him nonetheless. Halfway through that same night, the newly nicknamed Bayako's door crossing was broken through for the second time now without her permission, yet again with complete ease. At first, it seemed the boy's reasoning was just to rant to the librarian about his embarrassing evening, before informing her of his primary objective for barging in so late at night. A question: can curses be detected before they're activated? The answer, yes. And some extra insight, they can only be placed through physical contact. By the way, in his little monologue talking to himself out loud here, Subaru literally says that he died. He admitted to dying, right here, while muttering to himself, in front of Beatrice. Then, after excitedly exclaiming how it all fits now, he hoisted the lolly up and professed his love for her while swinging her around the room, before she, of course, blasted him down, knocking him unconscious. Also, I'm just gonna assume every time Betty knocks Subaru out, She has to drag him all the way back to his bed personally. Tomorrow came and it was time to visit Arlem Village for some radio calisthenics. Alright. Afterward, the maids learned their new pet names Subaru told the kids to give them. Subaru was bitten by a dog, and for some reason that meant his mission in the village was complete. Next up, back to Beatrice. Here she noticed his actually prophetic curse and reminded him that once it's activated, he will die. Weirdly though, upon hearing that, his expression failed to really change at all, which disturbed Betty. In fact, he seemed to almost be enjoying this. Eventually though, she agreed to cure it. And with her doing so, Subaru learned who placed the curse. The puppy the village kids were fostering, leading now to a complete change in Subaru's expression as he rushed off to explain the situation to the maids. Rem decided to come along, and next stop, well, back to the village. Here they learned a bunch of the village kids had gone missing while they were gone, along with one of the barrier crystals that was protecting the village to be broken. So the two rushed into the forest to save the kids, which they succeeded in doing. On the way back though, Subaru almost became demon dog food. Thankfully, Rem was at his side to save his life. He still passed out though. Following that, come morning, Subaru awoke next to Puck, who applauded him for his correct judgment of the curse. He then visited all the kids to make sure they were safe, and Betty met Barusu at the village gate, who was quite put off when Subaru didn't seem all too worried after she once more reminded him of his impending death less than a day away. The conversation continued, which eventually led to Subaru being told how to eliminate the curses placed on him in the forest by death of the caster. Upon learning of this earlier, Rem rushed off to slay some hellhounds, and an eavesdropping Rom overheard this and departed as well, to save her sister, so Barusu joined in. Eventually, they found a demonically enraged Rem, so they enacted the twin sister's plan to return her to normal and knocked her out, and got the hell out of Dodge with Rem in hands. Speaking of, she woke up a few minutes later with her demon form dissipated and was greeted by a quick headbutt from Subaru for blaming herself while casually giving her an inspirational speech, all the while criticizing her rather emotionally driven actions. Then, when they dreadfully came across the big boss of the Algarm, the new recruit ordered the twins to run in a valiant display of self-sacrifice. Thankfully, they didn't make it far before Roswell appeared back from his business meeting and destroyed all the surrounding mob beasts, thus saving Subaru from the curse once and for all. Then, Barusu received a face full of elated, joy-filled tears from Rem before passing out. Afterward which, they'd carry the boy to his bed for some well-deserved rest, and Rem decided to comfort Subaru through his nightmares once more through some bedside hand-holding. Almost as thanks, not even 5 minutes upon waking up would Subaru give Rem yet another speech, this time about how she's her own person and not just her sister's replacement, resulting in the blue-haired maid weeping tears of joy. Subaru is just full of speeches today. By the way, Meili escaped the village, but she will be back in due time. That night, Subaru had done what no anime protagonist had done before and asked Amelia out on a date, which she agreed to for tomorrow. Though tomorrow, it was time for Puck's magic release period, so instead of that date, they had a snow festival hosted by Mr. Natsuki himself, where everyone got drunk as shit and also started appreciating Subaru a whole lot more. Whoever this guy is, wherever he came from, has been an absolutely positive addition to this mansion. Honestly, this, followed up by a date the next day with his crush, things were finally looking up for Subaru. He'd managed to save everyone at the loot house, start his job as a butler in the Roswell mansion, rescue a bunch of kids from mob beasts, uncurse himself, as well as getting 2 girls to fall for him. Well, at least one for sure at the current moment. Upon arriving back from the eventual date, an unfamiliar carriage could be seen parked outside the mansion, so Subaru would investigate and discover Wilhelm, whom he indulged with in conversation. Even later on, much after their conversation, Felix inquired why he would bother talking to the boy, as Wilhelm is known far better for his sword than his social skills, but Sir Van Estrella announced he took a liking to his eyes which have experienced death several times over. The reason the two had even stopped here was because of Amelia's enlistment in Felix's services, that of his healing capabilities to aid in the restoration of Subaru's broken magic gate. Next up would Rem and Roz convince Amelia to let Subaru come along back to the capital, where she would be initiating her participation in the royal selection. Once arrived, Natsuki firstly made good on his promise to Kadomon and visited his shop for some appas. Next up, along the way, they met Julius, who honestly hit it off with Subaru quite well. That was a lie. I was lying. Then, Amelia needed to use the conference mirror, so she had Subaru wait outside, and minutes later, he saw Priscilla being mugged. He intervened to save her, which she didn't appreciate, and finally reunited with Old Man Rom in that same alleyway. After that kerfuffle with the Three Stooges, we met Al! I love Al. Oh, and Emilia's with him. Turns out each party was looking for their companion. Then, back at Cruchet's place, I know, I don't like the name either, but I gotta be consistent with the dub, okay? That's how they say Crush. That's what they say Crush. They say Cruchet. Blame the dub, okay? Subaru complained about him not being able to accompany her to the royal selection out of Emilia's fear that he'd push himself too far again. Soon, though, a disappointed Subaru promised to not use his magic nor push himself, and she set out after asking him to give her a reason to trust him. And almost immediately upon her departure, Subaru would, of course, disobey that very promise, and hitch a ride with Priscilla to enter the royal selection hall. Following a speech explaining why these 5 candidates are the ones qualified to become this country's next leader, Emilia's dismay upon witnessing Subaru's appearance here would be warranted. Before long, Mealy was condescendingly called a half-devil with relation to the Witch of Envy. And Subaru snapped. Upon belittling, disrespecting, and downright insulting the entirety of the Holy Knights on baseless accusations in front of an entire crowd full of them, Emilia's name was tarnished even further by Subaru, the pathetic excuse of a self-proclaimed knight. As such, Julius later challenged the man to a good old-fashioned duel, where he was utterly outclassed and almost literally destroyed, not only physically but emotionally as well. Julius would end the beatdown in a denouncement of Subaru's right to be at her side, describing the boy as irredeemably powerless. That's important. Irredeemably. Sorry. Upon waking up, Emilia and Subaru would have a chat. Well, more so a huge fight. Emilia, extremely upset with him, explained that she really did want to trust Subaru, but there was no reason to after his display today. Upon hearing which, he would full-on angrily break down in front of the one he loves, trying to play off his selfishness as selflessness, only digging himself into a deeper and deeper hole of despair, resulting in Emilia's abandonment of Subaru, cutting ties with the boy and returning to the capital without her self-proclaimed knight, who was still scheduled to be healed by Felix. The next day, Subaru could be seen training with Will, though to Felix's eye, this was but a distraction, as no actual improvement was being visualized. Reinhard attempted to convince the boy to join him in conversation with Julius in a calm discussion to clear up any misunderstandings, but was firmly denied, only cementing Felix's earlier appraisal. That evening, even through everything she witnessed, Rem would comfort the pathetic man she fell head over heels for as the sun set once more. Following that night was the 4th day in the capital. Those two were out on a shopping trip, which seemed to be going great. Only this is the exact moment of our next checkpoint, where Subaru would endure 3 painstaking deaths. Here, the boy would go from still distraught after his argument with Emilia, though recovering of course, to being absolutely devastated. Imagine being Rem having a nice conversation with Subaru while you're out buying some apples or whatever. Honestly, I'm sure she was thinking of this as a date. And the second you turn back around to talk to him, you see this. Before he grabs hold of your arm, pulls you halfway through the city to some old ruins, then begins a super long rant about desiring to run away with you, followed by a speech filled with self-loathing and nihilism. What do you even do in that situation? Well, if you're Rem, you give him a taste of his own medicine. The best damn speech he's ever heard. All the while taking the world's greatest rejection in stride, agreeing to keep him straight through any dark times he may have going forward. During the next day, a newly invigorated and promised most awesome hero ever, Subaru, along with Rem, gathered together allies and information in preparation for the all-important negotiation with Cruchet. That's right. All in a single, very efficient day. Said meeting's purpose? To broker the creation of an alliance to defeat the White Whale, one of the 3 great demon beasts plaguing the ReZero world, once and for all. Along with granting Cruchet the Roswell domain's mining rights, Subaru also possessed knowledge of the exact time and place the demon beast of the mist would next appear, thanks to his meteor. Luckily, Cruchet could tell he wasn't lying about the meteor's purpose thanks to her divine protection. But there's just one problem with all this. Will Cruchet even want to help with the subjugation of the whale? Well, that just turns out to be another one of Subaru's bets paying off. 3 major things led him to the conclusion that she would help. 1. Through his recent observations of the high traffic passing in and out of Cruchet's property. 2. Anastasia letting him know of Cruchet's large amount of transactions regarding weaponry and armor as of late. And 3. Subaru's overhearing of many conversations with members of Cruchet's party and allies regarding something big bound to happen soon. Now again, this very well could have been anything, but it was required for Subaru to gamble. He simply didn't have time to waste to figure out if the whale was in fact their target. Not only does he have this this arsenal of information and bargaining tools, this man who'd condemned the Holy Knights only days ago in a disgusting display seemed like a completely different person now. A person who also had the foresight to even call upon Russell Fellow and Anastasia Hoshin to join the meeting halfway through. Turns out Anastasia's forces would be assisting in the battle, as the Great Beast had also been in her way for quite some time. Russell, however, was more interested in Subaru's proposition to the mining rights, which will allow the Roswell Domain's magic stones to be distributed throughout the capital through Cruce. As the Merchant Guild's representative, letting that opportunity pass him by would be an utter failure of his craft. With that, we had all of Subaru's cards laid out on the table. With an offer like this, how could she ever turn this down? So, of course, Subaru's bet paid off and she agreed, concluding our meeting. Even after the negotiations were complete, Cruce was met with yet some more surprises, with the fact that Subaru's groundwork went even further. Turns out, he agreed to give Russell the Metia after the whale's defeat, along with granting the Hoshin Company an unspecified amount of money if the meeting went well, which I think it's safe to say it did. I wanted to make sure I explained Subaru's ridiculous prep for this, because it definitely makes him seem a lot more cunning than he actually is, or at least seems to be, and is in my opinion the most insane 180 from Subaru so far. One day, Subaru will be an absolute mess of a human being, suffering a beating to near death by Julius. Then, less than a week later, he'll appear to be the galaxy brain mastermind behind the unification of several enemy parties, with their coalition's goal being one of the 3 great demon beasts' much desired subjugation. Wilhelm, along with some more veteran swordsmen, thanks Subaru for giving them the opportunity for revenge once and for all, and the next day, after some rapid preparation, we were off! Following a few hours of travel, the convoy at last arrived at Flugel's tree, where they faced off against the fabled ivory-colored beast of legend. Something I really did gloss over in that first video is how impressive Subaru was here. He stayed on the front lines the entire time, all the while organizing important battle strategies, and once the boss fight reached its second phase and took to the skies, he instantly came up with a plan on the spot. A plan which involved him being launched into the air on a giant iceberg, requiring him to land on the horn. Actually, I don't think this was even necessary. Motherfucker is just doing it for the style points. And then free fall while emitting the witch's miasma to attract and distract it, all the while his maid launched a near fatal blow to the enemy. 400 years worth of personal grudges towards the demonic creature were at last satisfied. After centuries of terror, the demon beast of the mist finally fell. Subaru had done it. Thank you, Aaron, for pointing that one out. Post-battle, he and Cruce agreed to continue being friends, where she discovered the whale's subjugation was insanely only a secondary objective to Subaru. The main one, of course, being saving everyone at and around the Roswell mansion from the witch's cult, which she, again, at this point, seemingly clairvoyantly knew would be attacking the Roswell mansion. Said witch's cult have had exactly 0 interactions with Subaru yet, though he knew precisely where they were hiding, and informed everyone of their location. The fact Subaru knew this was obviously suspicious, so we'll let everyone know about his recent findings, the connection between the whale's appearances and the cult activities coinciding with one another. So it's at least a bit more trustworthy, especially coming from Wilhelm. Oh yeah, I guess I should mention Rem isn't part of this group. She left with Cruce to go to the capital to get healed. I'll mention them later though. Subaru was on a roll and he wasn't letting this situation stop him. Skipping but a single death now, during planning for the witch's cult ambush, our main character suddenly asked the group if a magic exists capable of possessing someone. Julius then confirmed, though only those with an affinity for spirits without a current contract with one, that yes, it does in fact exist. Natsuki then informed the soldiers of his vulnerability to being possessed. All the successful plans and predictions he'd made so far had come true, so the group blindly believed the boy for the time being. Honestly, his immense knowledge of the cult, his constant mood swings and PTSD, not to mention the miasma all over him, would probably lead many to believe he's a survivor and victim of a witch cult kidnapping, especially since he's the flagship for this whole operation. A few people were bringing this up in the comments, so I thought I'd include it. Thanks, guys. Anyway, though, the plans were laid out, and so all that was left was to act, and the witch cult hunt began. First up, Wilhelm dropped by the mansion to inform Amelia of the misunderstanding about the letter they received, the blank letter. So, Rom did not interrupt the witch cult elimination force this time. Yeah, about that. I kinda brushed by this last time, but the reason it was blank was most likely because Rem wrote it, for Amelia to confirm the sudden alliance with Cruce so that no misunderstandings would happen along the way. But the contents vanished and her name and memories were eaten, which I'll get to soon, leading to the blank letter. Why that was even bad was because blank letters in ReZero act as a metaphor that the one sending it no longer wishes to be on speaking terms with the receiver. Thanks for that tip, Luciferius. Secondly, they gave the fake merchant cultist a schedule which was delayed by 2 hours and used that time to evacuate the villagers. In this timeline, the first time Subaru met Otto was right here actually, where he was wrongly accused and captured for being a cultist, resulting in friendly laughter from Mr. Natsuki. The merchant still thanked him for saving him, of course, but was still understandably super confused on why Subaru was acting so buddy-buddy with the guy. Anyway, through Subaru and Julius's impressive teamwork, truly displaying how far the two have come in just a few days, defeated Betelgeuse Romaneconti using and abusing their newfound knowledge of his power to swap bodies. Keep in mind, the last time Julius saw Subaru was in his horrible state at the capital, so now seeing him again in such a rejuvenated form must feel like whiplash to the Holy Knight. Not able to catch a break though, Felix informed them Amelia's carriage happened to be rigged with enough magic stones to blow up a small village, so he and Otto rushed to her carriage as fast as they could. Then, en route, Subaru once and for all killed the scum that was Betelgeuse one final time. Also, here Subaru would inherit Betelgeuse's authority of Sloth, the unseen hand. When they reached Amelia's carriage, Subaru grabbed the bag of magic stones, threw them into the whale's rotting corpse, and the day was saved. Subaru once again professed his love for Amelia, and the silver-haired girl thanked him from the bottom of her heart for saving her. Later, homeward bound in the carriage, Subaru endured one singular death. So, out of nowhere, Subaru, who I remind you had just a few seconds ago professed his love for Amelia, and was happily flirting with her on the way home after she had cried and thanked him so deeply, looked to have a sudden panicked and terrified expression with sweat built up on his face, who also appeared to be hyperventilating. He then jolted back to reality and fearfully demanded to know where a girl by the name of Rem is. That's the question though. Who's Rem? Flashback time! This is Rem, if you forgot. So, like I said previously, while Subaru was out hunting cultists, Rem was headed for Cruchet's Manor to be healed. Before they could get too far, though, 2 members of the witch's cult attacked their convoy. Not just any old cult members either. These were 2 archbishops, Regulus Corneus and Lai Kaitos, representing greed and gluttony, respectively. Excitedly, after exhausting every synonym of eat known to man, Lai rushed towards Rem and devoured her name along with her memories. Before she actually lost consciousness though, the maid would warn the two of a hero by the name of Natsuki Subaru who promised would one day take them down. This actually got me thinking. Imagine being these two hearing the damn white whale was just defeated, and then soon after they received the news Betelgeuse, another Sin Archbishop, was also defeated. Not only that though, only about a week later they found out one more of their pets, the white rabbit, was also slain. All by the same man who this blue-haired maid said would one day take them down. Granted, that last one could be harder to prove than the others, but I'm just saying. Wonder who it could be, huh? So, for whatever reason, Subaru is the only one capable of remembering Rem's existence. In my comments, it's Shane, started by Haumach, was theorizing why this might be the case, bringing up that it could be because he's shown to be resistant to other authorities, and with each death or maybe exposure, he gains more resistance, since at first he's unable to see Sloth's authority, but in later loops he could. Anyway, you know what that means? Every time Rem ever aided Subaru, her actions made him appear that much better, since now, to everyone else, he was basically doing what a singular average bloke, as Subaru is, shouldn't even be capable of. Remember when the two battled their way through a deadly forest of demon dogs and barely managed to survive to save the village kids? All Subaru. Remember how the two cobbled together that entire plan to garner Cruchet and Anastasia's armies, as well as all of that swindling with the Merchants Guild, with the purpose of subjugating the damn white whale, which they actually succeeded in, all in a single day? All Subaru, baby. All Subaru. So, returning back to Cruchet's estate, who, by the way, had her memories eaten but her name kept intact, her, Felix, Subaru, Wilhelm, and Amelia discussed the contemporary matters at hand. Of course, after giving Subaru the evening to grieve over Rem's lack of existence. Oh, also, here Puck ordered Subaru to take care of Amelia from now on. The subject of disbanding their alliance was brought up by Felix, since it had caused a lot of trouble for them already, but that idea was rejected by the others, who convinced the cat it would be best to stay as allies for the time being. The cultists desire the revival of Satella through Amelia's body, so if they stick around, they're sure to show up again. So with the interest of revenge, but more so regaining Cruchet's memories back, the alliance was retained. After a night's rest, Felix ordered Subaru before they parted ways that since he'd been working his gate overtime lately, he's gonna need to wait 2 months before attempting any magic again. Arriving back at Arlem, concern was projected onto the villagers' faces. The half who evacuated to the sanctuary had still not returned. Upon realizing even Amelia was unaware of the sanctuary's location, they headed to Mather's mansion for clues. Here, they met Frederica Baumann, a maid who had taken a temporary leave of absence for personal reasons, just before Subaru's initial arrival. And now she's back. Luckily, Fred does know the location of the sanctuary, so after a 2-day prep time, the fanged maid gave Amelia a pyrazine crystal to allow them entry through the sanctuary's barrier. On their way, Amelia took note of Puck suddenly not present, but without time to discuss where he could have gotten off to, Frederica's crystal suddenly began to glow. So, thinking quickly in a panic, Subaru yanked it off, and then it glowed even brighter in Subaru's hands, coalescing in him being teleported into the woods. Waking up alone now, Subaru was visited by a small and skittish pink-haired girl. She quickly ran away upon him noticing as if to beckon him, so he followed her in hopes of reaching some answers until stopping in a large clearing with a stone temple in the center. Curiosity overcame young Su as he stepped foot into the building's cold interior, and soon left with the odd feeling of someone talking to him but possessing no recollection. Upon exiting, Otto could be seen knocked out of the carriage, dazed and confused, all thanks to Garfield, who almost murdered Subaru. But one cleared up misunderstanding later, and Patricia led the way to the main part of the sanctuary with their newfound ally. Arriving after Subaru's saddening reminder that Rom didn't believe herself to have ever had a sister, Amelia reminded Sue that he and she are a team now, stating they'll fix everything together from here on out. And the next stop was Roswell's lodging, where he was bandaged from head to toe from attempting to free the sanctuary of his demi-human binding curse through the trials. Though it was, of course, rejected, so why hadn't the villagers, who aren't even demi-humans at all, left already? Well, Garfield here is keeping him under house arrest. He'd been waiting specifically for Amelia to arrive to free the sanctuary's inhabitants. With the question of why the villagers hadn't returned yet at last answered and the only way to leave revealed, Amelia was forced to partake in the first of 3 trials. After a quick visit with the Arlem villagers, and immediately after entering the Witch of Greed's grave, the temple glowed in neon blue, which meant she was qualified, but its luster blackened almost instantly. Upon Garfield noting that is definitely not supposed to happen, Subaru dashed inside to investigate, though when he did, something unprecedented happened. The temple lit up again, confusing everyone since only demi-humans should be capable of undergoing the trial. Nonetheless, Subaru reached an unconscious Amelia and soon passed out himself, forcing the human, who shouldn't even be allowed, to take on the first trial and face his past. Feels like forever since I've said this, but before waking up for real, we're finally skipping some more deaths, and not just a paltry sum. This is the most deaths poor Sue had experienced for a single checkpoint so far. A total of 5 excruciatingly painful deaths later, and his brain was now surging with knowledge as if he met the Witch of Greed herself. Oh wait, he did. This knowledge included Ryuzu's facility, plus Echidna's immortality experiments in them. The fact Beatrice has what he thinks is a gospel, Roswell possessing a tome of wisdom, and knowing of Subaru's RBD. The fact assassins are attacking the mansion, along with the exact day they would come. Knowledge of Snowfall coming, followed by the White Rabbit attacking the sanctuary, and much, much more. Roughly an hour of silence passed, and eventually the two emerged from the temple. So they all headed over to one of the village houses to discuss business. Here, Subaru, Otto, and Amelia met Ryuzu officially for the first time, who explained some stuff about the sanctuary's barrier and its background. Later that night, at a certain point, Patricia began thrashing around recklessly, so Otto undid the reins and she ran all the way to find Mr. Natsuki in the graveyard, which she was rejected from entering, by the way, to witness and save him from painfully enduring his second trial. Waking up, he gazed upon the stars instead of the expected stone ceiling, and after a bit of appreciation and genuine kindness from his friends, he soon attempted to start the third trial, but was rejected this time by Echidna's doing. Following his attempt, Roz received a visitor, Subaru, to inquire if he knows of a way to leave the sanctuary aside from the trial method. What he received was information far more grim though. Roswell instead let Subaru know he himself was the one who ordered the attack of the assassins on the mansion. Not only only that though, the snowfall, followed by the white rabbit being here, was also his doing. This was all a master plan in hopes of strengthening Subaru's resolve to force him to choose who he desires to save more. Following that revelation, the boy slowly backed away from Roswaal in despair, and ran away aimlessly in a fear-filled panic. The next time Subaru was spotted was the next morning, where Otto would discover a broken, muttering Subaru, repeating the same words of "what do I do" over and over and over again. Here, after a quick scuffle, Otto Suin assertively offered to help in any way he could, because, you know, it's okay to rely on a friend once in a while. This really cut deep with Subaru. Something so simple, something everyone had been beating into him ever since this arc began. More than ever, Subaru appreciated Otto as a beloved friend and ally, so he went on to explain the mansion situation to the merchant. Then, Subaru, with absolute confidence brimming in his eyes, marched on into Roswaal's house and exclaimed, "Roswaal, let's make a bet, with my wish and yours on the line." He revealed his grand proclamation that he's going to save the mansion and the sanctuary in this loop. If he managed to overcome this insurmountable feat, this naive boy demanded Roswaal throw his tome of wisdom away and join him in assisting Amelia to become the next princess. That's right, when given an ultimatum of who to save, Subaru found and uncovered a secret answer: everyone. I still love Subaru's mood swings so much. Just yesterday, Roswaal witnessed Subaru in absolute distress after hearing Ross's terrible news. Yet one night later, just one night later, and his confidence was through the roof, declaring he's going to save every single person possible, blowing away all of his expectations. And hell, this mood swing isn't even directly from RBD. After that, Subaru made haste to the facility to discuss the situation with Ryuzu to perhaps gain some more insight, which he weirdly, 1, knew the location of, 2, correctly surmised that Ryuzu would be here, and 3, even knew of her goal in the sanctuary, garnering her acknowledgement that the one Ross was waiting for was none other than the man before her. During this discussion, Ryuzu explained that there are multiple Ryuzu clones who take shifts, the fact they're spirits, the situation with Ryuzu's Shima, Garfield and Frederica's past, as well as some speculation on Garfield's motivation to prevent the liberation of the sanctuary, as swaying Garfield over to his side was critical to this mission's success. After their conversation concluded, Amelia was visited by Subaru. Good thing too, because we all know her mind was on the brink of destruction in this arc. Arriving, he found her cowering under the bed sheets, and Subaru was before long able to convince the half-elf to tackle the past she'd witnessed in her trial, the past she had not been able to overcome. She thanked him, and once that was all off her chest, her ability to sleep was soon returned and she drifted off. When Amelia awoke later, Puck was with her, and the two caught up with each other until the spirit suddenly broke their contract. His crystals shattered as he entrusted Subaru to her, leaving poor Amelia alone in her room to confront her once repressed memories that had now flowed back into her upon the termination of their contract. While young Gar's suspicion of Subaru's connections to the witch rose, Subaru returned to Amelia's room again to console the still heartbroken half-elf, where he agreed to hold her hand until morning came. Unfortunately, to Amelia's sadness, she woke up in the middle of the night with Subaru nowhere to be seen, and was missing upon morning's arrival, leading to a search party starting. While Subaru was supposed to be with Amelia, Otto would recruit Rom to help take down Garfield in the future soon to come. Realizing something didn't feel quite right, a panicked Garfield rushed all around the sanctuary's grounds to find Shima, but to no avail, ending his search at the facility where he found Otto in her place. The merchant's mission to delay the unstoppable force that is Garfield would then begin. And later on, just when it appeared like Garf had Otto cornered, Rom appeared and tagged out Otto, leading to Garfield's fury and confusion. Garfield Tinsel demanded to know why and how they could have so much faith in Subaru, to which Rom replied, "He's weak, useless, and incompetent, but when it's do or die, he has surprisingly good timing. That's what Barusu is. If he believes he sees an opportunity and acts on it, you know that's our only path to victory." That is pretty funny. They've gotta think he gets flashes of the future or something, like some sort of seer. I love it though. To others, he's just that guy with perfect timing and, or I guess, incredible insight. Enraged, Garfield transformed. But back to Subaru now. He'd finally found Amelia, who had holed herself up in the graveyard hallway. She reproached him for leaving her during the night, and they eventually got into an argument, but it thankfully ended on a good note this time. Soon the two finally kissed here, after which he confidently declared she'd find a reason to believe in herself with her memories restored, and they exited the temple together. By the way, side note, Amelia still believed babies are made by kissing. Just thought I'd mention it, right? Outside, they found themselves a bloodied and beaten Garfield, dead set on destroying the building. Deciding now that he desired nothing more than to protect everyone around him, he transformed yet again. Subaru subsequently disobeyed Felix's recommendation to not use his gate for 2 months and casted a classic shamrock, beginning their bout. Oh yeah. Here, thanks to another YouTube comment, I learned that since Subaru had already been way overusing his gate as of late, it actually became defective after this moment. I didn't know that. So basically, rest in peace, Shamak. I think that's the only spell Subaru ever used, at least in the anime, right? At least he still got his authority of sloth. Speaking of. Before long, Subaru taunted Garfield, so he attempted to strike him down. Yet Subaru stood firm, and suddenly his sloth authority uppercut Garf. To everyone else though, Garfield just flew the hell back out of nowhere. Though surprised by this, Garf still retained the upper hand and was soon ready to finish off Subaru before Patriche saved him and knocked him out, ending their duel. Both of them woke up that night in the laps of their respective girls, where Rom suggested Garf finally attempt the trial again, where he begrudgingly agreed and entered the temple to face his past, and later emerged successful. Then it was Emilia's turn. Inside, she found Subaru's love letters, good luck messages, and encouraging words he inscribed all over the temple's walls, where she finally, hopefully, must have realized why he had left her bedside during the night. I should also note, Subaru, if you've forgotten, was still rejected from entering the temple, so he without a doubt went through a ton of pain to write all those messages. Speaking of those, Garfield mentioned them to an embarrassed Subaru, which I suppose he forgot about. I bet for a brief moment, Garf thought they were for him. This went on until the Ryuzus appeared to talk about a subject that is unavoidable if they wish to liberate the sanctuary: the progenitor the 4 copies were derived from. During that conversation, Emilia would awake from her trial after having confronted her past, but didn't exit the grave quite yet, with her needing to contemplate what she had just overcome. Outside the tomb, Subaru thanked Shima for her explanation, and she entrusted the rest to young Sue as Rom, her, and the other copy hobbled off facility bound to relax. The guys also departed as their next destination was Margrave Mathers. The 4 demanded he give up and call off the assassins, but Roswell's stubborn attitude and beliefs were steadfast, far more than they'd hoped. Roswell relished in their defiance, forcing the battle to rage on into Team Subaru's Plan B. Baru handed Rom Puck's new crystal, and the next stop was the Roswell mansion. Following a farewell to the boys, the pink-haired maid returned to greet Emilia, who was just exiting the tomb in the wake of completing her first trial. The maid bowed her head and pleaded for Emilia to save Roswell from his illusions by assuming the royal throne. And seconds later, an eavesdropping Roswell appeared to denounce her decision to keep walking forward as meaningless. But Emilia rejected Roswell's negativity before once more turning her back to the two and resolutely beginning the second trial. Rom would, a short time later, in order to finally put an end to his delusions herself, summoned Puck from his new crystal to begin their deadly battle. During that battle, Rom declared her love for Roz, and with the assistance of Puck, she managed to catch him off guard and threw his tome of wisdom in the fire, incinerating his would-be fortunes. Roswell, completely enraged, delivered a seemingly fatal blow to Rom, but immediately snapped out of it and regret overcame Margrave Mathers. With the duel done, Puck soon rushed off to delay the rabbits and stop the snow. While that was all happening, Emilia finished her second trial and exited the temple to find all the residents of the village and the sanctuary happily awaiting her return. After some encouraging words from everyone, she steeled herself and marched onward into Echidna's final trial. And then, after experiencing countless possible futures and even meeting Minerva, Emilia woke up. The door facing the hallway seemed to have opened, and inside she bore witness to Echidna's grave. And attached was the spell creating the barrier. With a single strike, the incredibly intricate string of magic before her was smashed to bits. Then she dashed outside to meet everyone waiting for her. Them and a hellish blizzard, of course. She decided she still had something she needed to do, so Emilia sprinted over to the facility and met all the Ryuzus there. Upon arriving, Shima, along with the crystal containing the original Ryuzu, disintegrated to prevent the irreparable damage her not doing this would cause, as quoted from her. Following that, everyone dashed over to the battlefield where they found a broken Roswell helplessly trying to save Rom. Emilia realized she was still alive, but the rabbits were closing in. So they returned to the graveyard with Emilia leading them. Meanwhile, Subaru, Garfield, and Otto at last reached the mansion, and they made it just in time too. Frederico was in the process of fighting Elsa, and Petra was... Well, she was doing what any 12-year-old girl would be doing in this situation and running for her life. During the battles against the assassins, while trying to take down a particularly strong mob beast, Subaru and Otto accidentally set aflame to the entire mansion in the process. Take that, Roswell. Eat a fucking dick. Even later, Garfield crushed the shit out of Elsa with a giant pig's corpse, brutally murdering her. They did leave Melee alive, though. Now, the only one left to save was Beatrice. After many failed attempts already, he realized the only door left to try was Roswell's secret one. Oh yeah, about that. In this timeline, Subaru should not be aware of that door. The fact that he has this knowledge literally saved this loop. If he hadn't known about it, he would literally lose his bet with Roswell, which Ros was probably banking on. Thank you to this comment chain here for pointing this out. Subaru, in a true display of how far he's come since first entering the sanctuary, requested for Beatrice to save him. And after a lot of convincing, his words finally, and I mean finally, got through to the Great Spirit, and she took his hand. They quickly zoomed back to where Amelia was facing off against the White Rabbit by herself with her back against the wall. Working together now, Beatrice, Amelia, and Subaru managed to rid the world of yet another one, or I suppose I should say thousands, of the great demon beasts plaguing the ReZero world again, once and for all. So now, after being the mastermind behind the White Whale's defeat, along with playing a huge role in said battle, this legendary man also played a part in the White Rabbit's demise. This time, if they can prove it of course, which the possibility of that is questionable at the very least, Subaru and Amelia's camp in general will appear even more amazing than they already seem to the public. I mean, think about it. Yeah, we're dealing with a whole different ballpark here, but with the whole White Whale, it took 3 separate factions working together to subjugate it. Meanwhile, with the rabbit, it just took the princess candidate, the legend himself, Subaru Natsuki, along with a great spirit in the name of Beatrice, who is now his contracted spirit, I might add. After the rabbit's demise, Roz and Betty visited Echidna's grave together, and here we, along with Beatrice, learn this is the same Roswell from 400 years ago. The Roswell Beatrice and Echidna knew personally. When they finished their talk, everyone met at the cathedral to individually punch Roswell for repentance. And of course, he did finally apologize. Much later on, with everyone gathered together at a rented ceremonial hall, Subaru would officially become Amelia's knight. Then the two took each other's hand and danced, and well, that concludes the true timeline of ReZero. Until Season 3, of course, which by the way is soon. Also, as a reward for your making it to the end of this video, here are some time codes for you to watch the anime in this format. Just skip the flashbacks, the Castle of Dreams segments, and the trials, and you're good. Well, everyone, thank you so much for watching again. If you're coming back, but if you're here a first time, thank you for joining anyway. I appreciate it. And here's the big reveal of what my hair looks like now. Wow, that's terrible. Could be worse. Anyway, everyone, thank you for watching. Hopefully this video was better than the first two. I think it was. I think it turned out fantastic. Obviously, I'm saying this in the past, so it might not be good. I hope it is, though, because what the frick would be the point of this video, right? Anyway, everyone, like this video if you liked it, dislike it if you dislike it, comment any thoughts you have in the comments below, and anything I messed up. I really hope I didn't mess anything up, though, because this was my second go at this, and if I did, that'd be pretty embarrassing. But you never know. I'm a pretty stupid guy. And have yourselves a fantastic day, and don't forget to stay trash. Peace.